Hey everyone, so today's tutorial is on how I made this French bow using scraps of fabric I had from a dress that I made my daughter. So I cut out all these pieces and I attached them to fabric stiffener or stabilizer, and it had adhesive on one side, so I just had to iron it to my fabric to stabilize it. And I cut out any excess white because I like to iron the back and the front of my pieces, and I don't use any steam, so that makes sure that I adhere it properly to it. Once I've done that, I can go down to my big kick and I use the French bow die, and I run it through a couple times because I don't have a large piece of fabric. Instead I have little tiny pieces, so I have to cut them individually. And it's just sort of the big bow, the back of the bow, and the center of the bow that all need to be cut out. Once I've cut out all my pieces, I can go ahead and use fray check. Now I use fray check in two different ways. First, I took a paintbrush and I dipped it in fray check, and I ran it along the edges of the bow, which seemed to be working fine until I worked against the grain of the fabric, and then my edges started to look frayed, and that is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. So I decided not to use the paintbrush method anymore and just use the fray check bottle itself. Now the problem with that is that the fray check bottle has an opening, and depending on how much pressure you put on the bottle, it'll determine how much liquid will actually go onto your fabric. And one thing I found is if I'm not careful and I'm not consistent, a big blob can come out and then it will stain your fabric. And once it dries, it will still look wet and stained, so that's one thing you have to consider. So once the pieces have dried with the fray check, I can assemble my bow. And like I said, I use scraps, so it's not going to be a continuous piece. Instead, I've got to assemble all these little pieces together of the bow, just using my hot glue gun, layering the small and larger bow, and then the back of the bow. And once that's done, you can add the center piece, and you can also put something else if you wanted to. And apart from this, I have an alligator clip to add to the back so that I could use it as a hair bow. And then just with hot glue, just glue it to the back. And that's pretty much it. A French bow. I hope you guys like this tutorial. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.